Salutations, friends. So that title might be a little bit confusing if you haven't seen my last two vlogs, but on Saturday, June 13th, we found a kitten hiding in our shop, all scared and roughed up, and so we brought him inside and I took him into my room away from the other animals, and he was just so excited to be around people. He was wiggling and purring non-stop, and he was just the sweetest thing. He was dirty and skinny, and he had scabs all over his face. He had a collar, but there wasn't any tag, so we checked with the neighbors to make sure he wasn't theirs, and we made a post online, but after confirming that he didn't belong to either of our neighbors, it was starting to look like he had gotten dumped, which unfortunately this is not the first time that this has happened. We live in the middle of nowhere, and it seems like it's a fairly popular thing for people to just dump their unwanted cats. And it upsets me knowing that for all of the kittens and cats that we have found and been able to help, that there's probably double, triple, quadruple that many who've gotten hit by cars or starved to death, froze to death in the winter, eaten by coyotes. We have ton of coyotes around here. When you dump an animal in the middle of nowhere, you're basically leaving them for dead. Domestic cats raised inside households, and even sometimes outdoor cats, are not made to live outside and survive on their own, and a lot of them don't have the knowledge or resources or skills to hunt and keep themselves alive. This guy definitely didn't. God knows how long it had been since he had last eaten when we found him. So if you absolutely need to rid yourself of an animal, first, before you even ever think of getting an animal or adopting a pet or whatever, you need to make sure you're going to be able to take care of that pet and love it through the good and the bad. Pets are a lot of work, and as much as they are part of your life, you are their entire life. And if you aren't going to be able to do that and stick with them and be there for them, then you shouldn't have a pet. Like, if you're going to just get bored, or your kids are going to get bored of the kitten or whatever, then you don't adopt a pet. Get them a stuffed animal, you know? It's frustrating. But if you do get into a situation, I know sometimes it's unavoidable, where you absolutely have to get rid of a pet, or you can't keep them for whatever reason, please, please, please take them to a shelter. It does not take that much more energy or resources to drive to a shelter than it does to drive out in the middle of nowhere and dump them, and it gives them a much better chance of survival, and it gives a better guarantee that they're going to get put into a home with people who love them, instead of suffering until they either succumb to the wilderness or just die, because that's what happens a lot of time. You dump a cat and it starves or gets eaten or gets hit by a car. They don't live very often when you just throw them away. And please, for the love of God, get your pets fixed. This guy, not fixed. He definitely not fixed, and he's probably getting about to the age where he's old enough to start breeding. And I hate it when people just leave their cats unspayed, unneutered, to just run around and breed without care. It just adds to the problem of all these stray animals, and it just, there are plenty of resources if you're low income or whatever. Just get your pets fixed. Just do it. Please. Please. Okay, now that we got that PSI out of the way, and I got a little ranty and upset, let's meet the kitty, even though he was back there, so you've already seen him. Come here. So this is Rufus. He is named after the cat from the 1985 horror film The Reanimator. There is a black cat in that movie named Rufus, who dies and gets reanimated by Dr. Herbert West. And I thought that he kind of looked like him with all his scabby scabs all over him. They're gone now. He's looking much better. And it kind of fit his story of being... He didn't die, but he was dumped. And then brought into a loving family. He is happy and getting healthier by the day. We're working on getting him up to a better weight. That way we can take him in to get him fixed and get his shots. We haven't learned his age at the time of filming this, but he is definitely young. He is a little ball of chaos and energy. And he is just the sweetest thing in the world. He is the chillest cat I've ever met as far as letting us pet him and pick him up and carry him. He hasn't hissed at us, he hasn't bitten us, well, except for when he's playing. He's just incredible. And as to how we decided to keep him, well, he kind of, to be honest, decided to keep us. I feel like he just kind of immediately bonded with my boyfriend and I, and we completely fell in love with him. So we are completely enamored by his presence, and I just, at this point, like, him not being here would be devastating. So we are very happy that he is here, and we have fallen in love. He's only been here about a week, and he has already taken over the room. We've got toys all over the place. This video is about making toys. Speaking of which, let's get into the crafty bit of this video. What is on your paw? So I'm going to be making 3 DIYs used with my scrap fabric. These are little, easy, super simple, fairly quick DIYs to make for your own kitties at home, and it helps to use up your scrap fabric, which if you're a crafter or you sew, you definitely have a stash of those little scraps that you just have no idea what to do with, and these are perfect for those. First, let's make some cute little mice toys. These are super simple. All you're going to need is some regular thread, embroidery thread, and some fabric scraps. First, you're going to cut out some teardrop-like shapes from your fabric. You can make them as big or as small as you like. Here is a ruler for reference as to how big mine are. Next, you can add any details you want. I'm just going to stick with ears for now. Just cut out 2 small circles and whip stitch them onto both halves of the fabric. You don't have to add ears. I just think the contrasting fabric is super cute, especially with those little stitches. Next, we'll take a length of embroidery floss about 4 or 5 inches long and tie a knot at both ends. Place your fabric right sides together, sandwiching that floss between both sides at the back end. This is going to be the tail. Now, just sew around all the edges, leaving a small opening to turn it right side out. And be careful only to sew over one end of the floss. Flip that thing right side out, and now you can stuff the toy with whatever you like. Regular stuffing will do just fine, but I'm choosing to use some more fabric scraps that I just cut up into little pieces. Sew up that opening, and now if you want to, you can add a nose and eyes just with some simple embroidery, but I decided that I really liked the way that they looked and I didn't think they needed it, so here they are. This is it. Cute, easy, little recycled mouse toys. Next, we're going to make our handsome man a new collar. This was the collar we found him in. It's a safety collar, which is nice, but it is filthy and it stinks and it just needs to get thrown out. So instead of throwing it all away, I'm going to deconstruct it and save all the hardware and just set that aside for later. Now I'm just measuring the length of the deconstructed collar, and once I have that measurement, I can finally get rid of this nasty, stinky thing. Now just take that measurement and cut out a piece of fabric the same length and then 4 times as wide as the original collar, and we're going to take that to the ironing board and press it in half and then fold in both sides and press it again, this time pinning as we go. Sew that up, staying close to the edge and sewing along both sides, and all we have to do is reconstruct the collar using that same hardware that we set aside earlier, and just secure those raw ends by tucking them over and sewing them down, going over it multiple times for extra security. The last thing I'm going to do is add a little bow just by sewing a rectangle, scrunching it up, and securing it to the collar with one last little strip of fabric. Now, all you need to do is adjust it and put it on your friend. And look at how handsome he is, my little man. And don't worry, he has an ID tag coming in the mail just in case anything ever happens. The people who find him will be able to actually know who he belongs to and who to call. And this brings us to our final DIY, this time a toy that is a bit more interactive between you and your cat. We're going to start by cutting a whole bunch of 1-inch strips of fabric on the bias and sewing them together into a super long skinny strip. Next, onto a wooden dowel, dot a bit of hot glue onto one end and start wrapping the fabric strip around it, dotting a little glue every once in a while just so the fabric doesn't shift around too much. Now set that aside and take 3 of those strips of fabric, fold them in half and secure them to the end of the wooden dowel with a knot, adding a little bit of hot glue just for extra security. And now we can just braid those 6 strands together until we have a good length for playing. Now, looking back at the construction of this, I think I would have been fine doing just a 3-strand braid. The 6 strands make it a little thick, but it's still usable, so that's just something that you might think about if you make this. Lastly, tie the end of the braid into a secured knot and trim the extra fabric strips, leaving about 3 or 4 inches to hang loose. And that's it. This DIY is super easy. It's just a little time consuming having to cut out all those strips and sew them together, but it's an awesome way to use up fabric scraps and it's a great toy. And that's going to be all for us today. Thank you so much for watching. And if you liked this video, make sure to click that like button. And if you want to stick around and see more of me and definitely more of Rufus here, then feel free to subscribe. I upload every Tuesday and Thursday, and we'd love to have you. Remember, always be responsible with yourself and your pets, and don't forget to wash your hands. Goodbye! Oh my god, why? Every time. You're just not gonna let me film, are you? He wants to play. Rufus wants to play. I know you're bored. I just wanna know how you're feeling now.